Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. Welcome back for a DraftKings Week 12 first look. Hopefully you are preparing for the Thanksgiving slate. Hopefully you are preparing for the Week 12 slate. Thanksgiving week, very crowded week in terms of content. I'm doing everything that I can to get you guys the videos that you want and get them out to you in a timely fashion. My article will be out on Wednesday morning this week. There is no head-to-head battle this week because of Thanksgiving and everybody that does content being kind of condensing our football week into like 2.5 days. We'll pick back up with the head-to-head challenges the week after Thanksgiving, week 13. I'm going to be having Brad Evans from FTN on the show, the big noise, if you will. So he's going to be here. That's going to be a fantastic show. Brad's a good friend of mine and a hilarious dude, knows a ton about fantasy. So look out for that video next week. But for this week 12 first look, as you can see on the cover, we're just going to be playing Dalvin Cook every week. He has taken over that Christian McCaffrey role, that Le'Veon Bell role, that David Johnson role, just the guy that you have to jam into your lineups no matter when or where you're playing. If he's on the slate, you have to play him. And if he's in a good matchup, even better. If he's at home, even better. If he's favored, even better. He's all of those things this week. So my lineup on this first look for the main slate is going to come preloaded with Dalvin Cook. So just understand that. Thank you guys for being here once again. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notifications bell. Everything that you do, anything that you click helps out. Leaving a reply down below the video definitely helps out. Thank you guys very much for that. There's links to all my socials. If you click show more on the description, my Instagram, TikTok, but most importantly, the Discord, if you want to get involved and learn how to be a better player every single day. We have a massive community, 4,500 strong plus in the Discord for you to surround yourself with. And if you utilize the join button, become a channel member here on YouTube, you'll get access to all these subs only channels, which is where most of the activity is in there. I'm combining the YouTube channel members with the Twitch subscribers to create as much of a user-friendly and massive experience for you guys in Discord to surround yourselves with as many people as possible. So if you ever have a question about a slate or daily fantasy or how to use an optimizer or what should I do these settings at, that is what our Discord community is for. It's people helping people, all of them like-minded, to help everybody get better every day. It's kind of the tide that rises all boats. So make sure that you get in Discord, and if you sub here on YouTube, you get a nice little badge, you get some really cool emotes, and the big value add is the access to the subscriber only channels there in Discord. But let's go right on to this week 12 video. And as I said before, Dalvin Cook is already in there. Great. I don't have to worry about clicking Dalvin Cook's name because he's really good and we're just going to play him. So let's worry about what quarterback we're going to go with. We're going to pay $9,500 for Dalvin Cook. We're probably going to have to find value. Kyler Murray, as I've said before, he's good. We're going to keep trying to play him as often as possible. There are ways to fit him. You just have to find a couple of value wide receivers. There are value wide receivers on this slate. It's definitely a way that you can go if you want to get him in there. But $8,200, a bit restrictive for this first look lineup where we kind of focus on more of a cash game build, which means we tend to pay down a little bit more at quarterback. Patrick Mahomes is $8K. They've really been aggressive at DraftKings this week at pricing up quarterbacks. One of the highest totaled games on the slate, Buffalo Bills against the Chargers. Both offenses really good at moving the ball effectively and efficiently. And Josh Allen throws touchdowns to pretty much anybody. So like stacking him with Diggs is fine, or stacking him with Brown is fine, but stacking in cash is not totally necessary. And obviously, anytime that we're in an outdoor East Coast game post-Thanksgiving, we kind of have to worry about what the weather could be. But Josh Allen, as hard as he throws, less affected by winds up to 20 miles an hour than some other quarterbacks are. Like Phillip Rivers with the hot air balloons that he throws would be way more affected by the wind, as opposed to Josh Allen, who throws laser beams, as well as the fact that he can get it done for you on the ground, give you a nice floor with his rushing yardage and the possibility for a ceiling game with what he can add with touchdowns with his legs. 7,600, a bit much. So is Justin Herbert just like Dan Marino's child or something? Because no rookie quarterback has done what he's done in terms of multiple touchdowns in like 7 straight games. Absolute beast, now facing off against Buffalo, who's tough against perimeter wide receivers, but a little bit softer on the inside against tight ends who line up in the slot, or against tight ends in general, or wide receivers who line up in the slot. And guess what? His 2 best pass catchers both line up at tight end and in the slot with Keenan Allen. Not permanently in the slot, but he does spend a lot of his snaps in there, as well as Hunter Henry, who spends a lot of time lined up at slot and clearly lines up in line at tight end as well. And Herbert doing a great job at just slinging the ball all over the field. This is the highest totaled game on the slate and one that we're going to have shares in tournaments, but in cash games, I want to get a little bit cheaper. Tom Brady against Kansas City. Kansas City's been tougher defensively than we're giving them. Obviously, we're not going to have the results for week 11 as they play on Monday night, and that is after I'm recording this video. So assuming that all of his pass catchers are healthy and assuming that Tom Brady himself is also healthy, at 6,600, I think makes for some very interesting stacks or double stack plays, and to be able to bring it back. They're going to be premium stacks, whether you're using Antonio Brown, Godwin, Evans and all of his end zone targets, Gronkowski at tight end, bring it back with either KELCE or Hill or Clyde Edwards-Helaire. A lot of tournament possibility with Brady there, coming in 1,400 lower than Patrick Mahomes. Cam Newton, again, this is a pace-up game. This is for Cam Newton, which is something that we look for. This is also, again, I'm trying to look for the totals here. The Cardinals favored by 2.5, and the total is 48 on this one. So assuming that they could be playing from behind, which is where we want Cam Newton and the Patriots if we're going to roster Cam Newton, and understanding what he can do for you on the ground, as well as him actually throwing the ball a little bit better. We saw a massive pace-up game against Houston, threw the ball 40 times for hit you the 300-yard bonus. Same thing happened in week 2 against Seattle, 395. He had his troubles with his throwing mechanics in here, 274 against the Jets there. This is not a difficult defense, and I believe that they can scheme to get him to be able to do the things that we have grown accustomed to him doing, as well as having the massive upside at 6,400 with the touchdown or touchdowns that he can add on the ground. I think that Cam Newton is more in play this week than most people are probably going to admit. Taysom Hill, because everybody kind of wants to pretend, oh yeah, his arm's hurt and he's just not the same. I'm not going to play Cam Newton. I think that's kind of a mistake, especially in tournaments. Taysom Hill, 6,200 now. You know what he can do. We've seen him be the quarterback now. It's no longer a question of can he get things done. It's just a matter of how is he going to get things done. Jumping all the way from 4,800 to 6,200. This price is a little scary for me. Obviously, we have a solid floor with the rushing ability. We also have the touchdown upside, especially when they get close. But like, he was efficient on his throws, but they weren't really big downfield throws. So he's going to have to dink and dunk his way to freedom at 6,200 for you to get there. And if you're going to play him in tournaments, who are you going to pair him with? 6,200 is a scary price to run a naked quarterback if you're not going to be pairing him in tournaments with anything. But I think we can find somebody that's sub 6K this week. And as much as I want to stream quarterbacks against Atlanta, and as actually good as Derek Carr has kind of been this year, I think we can get there. Stacking or not, whether you want to stack him with somebody in tournaments or multiple players in tournaments, fine. If you want to bring it back with Atlanta, who's playing at home, and Todd Gurley has some serious home road splits with the way that they run that offense, as well as one-loss splits. In games that they've won, Todd Gurley has been much better than in games that they've lost. He's also been better in games that Atlanta has played at home. There's certainly bring-back opportunities. I'm just going to go with Derek Carr in this lineup because if I can get 18 to 22 points, that essentially 4X's his salary, gives me a solid floor with enough weapons against this Atlanta defense that I believe is ill-equipped to stop what Las Vegas brings to the table, either on the ground or through the air. I think that we're going to get sustained drives from Las Vegas, which opens up some salary, which is kind of what I need to do here. So now we have to look at running backs that we're interested in as well. So there's a drastic drop-off once we go from Dalvin Cook and Christian McCaffrey. And if McCaffrey comes back here, we won't know until after Thanksgiving. So like, if McCaffrey's back and you want to play him, go ahead. I'm never going to tell you to not play Christian McCaffrey because he came back in that 1 week 9 game after missing every week since week 2 and posted 37 DraftKings points. You can even take these 2 touchdowns away. That leaves him with a 25-point day just on volume alone, which is outstanding, right? Any running back that's going to get you realistically 7-8 plus targets puts you in a win situation, and you know that he's going to get the vast majority of the touches on the ground as well. So no game under 24.8 points so far this year for Christian McCaffrey. 2 touchdowns in every game that he's played so far this year for Christian McCaffrey, but that's not sustainable. But the volume certainly is. Josh Jacobs, if you wanted to fade Derek Carr, you don't believe in Derek Carr, you want to go with Josh Jacobs, sure, I get it. Running backs on the road, though, probably not where I'm going to go in cash. He's tournament viable for me, though. Derrick Henry, probably not what I'm going to do this week. Alvin Kamara had a really interesting week with no catches on only one target once Taysom Hill was the quarterback. I have to think that they're going to remedy this situation, right? It's got to be. Because if Alvin Kamara is now a 12-touch running back with no targets, he's useless to us. His price has dropped all the way from 9,200 down to 8,200 this week. This could be a buy spot for him if you believe that they are going to actually involve him in the passing game, which I would think that it's something that they're going to remedy, because you can't not get the ball into the hands of your best playmakers in the ways that they can win. So I kind of feel like Alvin Kamara is in a nice bounce spot here when people are probably going to exit him, especially with some other players that are on the board. Nick Chubb got really unlucky last week, considering that basically every time they got inside the 5-yard line, he left the field with a shoe or a contact lens problem, with 4 inside the 5 carries going to Kareem Hunt, drastically holding down Nick Chubb's price here. He only went up 100 from week 11 to week 12, and now he faces Jacksonville, who's not been a very good defense against anything, and this is not a very high volume passing offense. They're going to lean on Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt a ton. I'm expecting 30 to 40 carries from that duo this week, with hopefully 22 to 25 going to Nick Chubb. He is very Derrick Henry-esque in the fact that they don't use him at all in the pass game. So if he's going to seed inside the 5 carries, it's very tough for him to pay off for us, but he has massive tournament upside in the fact that he leads the league in carries that go over 20 yards at running back, and he's done it with like 5 less games than every other running back. Massive big playability, serious floor, and a great matchup here for Nick Chubb, and we'll hope that he doesn't lose a contact lens next time that they get inside the 5-yard line. Great tournament play for Mike Davis. Is hit or miss, clearly, as if Chris McCaffrey's in, we're not playing Mike Davis at all. If he's out, then we'll consider him. But Minnesota, a pretty stout defense up front, even though they did give it up against Dallas last week. But James Robinson, doesn't matter if they're winning, or doesn't matter if they're losing. It doesn't matter if they're competitive. It doesn't matter if they're getting trampled. His volume is secure, and he is playing at home this week. He's clearly involved in the passing game. Gets all of their carries inside the 5 when they get in there. My only concern is if tooth to gum ratio is going to be their quarterback, or if Gardner Minshew is going to be their quarterback. Obviously, this offense does run better with Gardner Minshew in there. I would prefer James Robinson if he was the quarterback, but I'm not going to avoid him if he isn't. So at 6,300, that's just too cheap right now, and I'm going to plug in him, even though that they're not going to be favored in this game. But there is one thing to consider. Myles Garrett is probably still going to be out this week, I would assume. And if he's out this week, last year, without Myles Garrett, the Cleveland Browns allowed 126.3 rushing yards per game when Myles Garrett got suspended. So I want to play running backs against Cleveland. We watched Miles Sanders last week in the first half go completely nuts against this Cleveland defense. And then because of the problems with Wentz and interceptions and fumbles and not being able to move the ball, they had to abandon that. But he was gashing this Cleveland team in the first half, and the same could happen for James Robinson here against them. We're going to need to find a value running back. Kalen Ballage saw a ton of targets last week. I think that he's in play at 5,800 with 18 targets the last 3 games since he's kind of taken over as the lead back for the Chargers. Buffalo's reputation is that of a very tough defense, but as long as they're scoring and as long as this Herbert-led offense is moving the ball, I think that Kalen Ballage is going to be a viable play, and he's under 6K. With as much as they're utilizing their running backs in this situation, he gives you a solid floor with touchdown upside, as he is the main recipient of their inside the 5 carries at 5,800. But I'm going to go a different route because I could just do that every single week, right? Like, that's a very easy way to go. I know that y'all don't want to talk about Jonathan Taylor, but and I'm not saying to play him right now, but he did have 26 touches again last week with 4 in the passing game. Looked like the kid that we thought he was going to be. We'll have to see if he said, if he's going to continue that. But there's a very distinct value here on the board. And it's against Cincinnati, and it's Wayne Gallman. Nobody's ever excited to play Wayne Gallman, but Wayne Gallman's just produced on an every game basis for the last month or so, with 19, 14.5, 13.5, 16.5 DraftKings points, and he's still only 5,000 going up against Cincinnati and favored. This looks like an easy early week plug and play to me. And then if something else opens up later in the week, we'll be able to go to it without problem. If you don't like Wayne Gallman, I get that. I'm fine with that. If you want to go a different route, go for it. I'm just saying that he's going to pop as a value, and there's no projections out because it's Monday. It is what it is. Obviously, Cincinnati is probably not going to play as fast without Joe Burrow under center, but it's still a defense that is highly efficient to run against, and no, Gallman's not going to get 25 touches, but he's good enough in the passing game to at least contribute there, and he's getting the inside the 5 carries for that Giants offense. So hopefully Daniel Jones falls again inside the 5-yard line instead of running it all the way in like he did against the Eagles, and we get some Gallman leverage carries once they get in close. One player that I do want to take advantage of, obviously we can pay up at wide receiver, right? So like they finally got Keenan Allen's price right. I've said for a few weeks that he's essentially DeAndre Hopkins in disguise in terms of volume, right? DeAndre Hopkins is a better wide receiver from a talent perspective. But Keenan Allen is a top 10 receiver, if not a top 5 receiver in the league, and is getting the volume from a fantasy perspective to play like one of the top wide receivers in the league, top 3 maybe in the league, on a game in, game out basis in terms of what you're going to project him at. And now against Buffalo, who struggled against slot receivers, he's finally priced up. So now it's a place where you have to make a choice, right? 6,200 was egregious. 7,000 was still too cheap. 7,100 didn't work out, but it was still too cheap. 7,400 not anywhere near enough to get us off of playing him at least at 8K. Now you got to think about it. Where he needs like 24 points is kind of what we're looking at, and he's now averaging just under that. Same thing goes with Hopkins, who's averaging just under that. This is where players should be priced, where their average points per game is slightly under what 3x their salary would be. Tyreek Hill, great big playability, but faces 2 talented young cornerbacks this week. Mike Thomas had his highest target output on the season because Taysom Hill basically throws the balls where he does, and he had a really bad drop too, so he could have had 10 catches this week. Touchdown upside is kind of minimized without Drew Brees there, but if he's going to get this sort of volume, 10 plus targets every single week at 7,400, now he enters that price range where Keenan Allen was, but now Michael Thomas is. So I think that he is somebody that we do have to consider as being in play, but I have to find some value here. One of the reasons I'm going to have to find value here, and I'm going to do the wide receivers in just a second, is that Darren Waller, when Ruggs plays, is a beast. Because of everything that Henry Ruggs does, opens up everything that Darren Waller does. And at 6K, he's still underpriced, considering that KELCE, who's an amazing player, right? You guys know how I feel about Travis KELCE. If you can afford him, go get him. You'd have to sacrifice somewhere, and I'm not going to sacrifice the sure thing, which is Dalvin Cook's volume and inside the 5 volume and pass game volume for Travis KELCE's fluctuating targets. The last 3 weeks have been outstanding, right? With 10, 12, and 12, but we've also seen him sit between 7 and 3 and still smash because he scored touchdowns, right? But like, we know that the worst possible game that Dalvin Cook can have this year with the volume that he's getting is like 15 points that he had 2 weeks ago. I know he had worse than that early in the season, but he wasn't being utilized this way. Like, this 15 points based on this volume and how he's being used is about as bad as he can do, and it was against one of the best rushing defenses in the league. Now, when we factor in a tight end into that situation, there's a lot more variance when it comes to Travis KELCE and his game than these last 3 weeks have allowed, or at least allowed us to see. I'd say his floor is somewhere around 8 to 10, as opposed to Dalvin Cook's being 15 or 16. But Waller, when Ruggs has played, has been tremendous. I'm going to plug him in. There are other tight ends that we can look at on this slate, up and down, but like every tight end that's been a value has kind of just been all over the place. Hunter Henry, depends on him being able to catch touchdowns, because his volume leads him to these like 5 to 10 points on volume. And then if he catches a touchdown, he looks like a really great play. Evan Engram had great volume, then it just disappeared. If he scores a touchdown, he looks great. Tight end has just been an absolute dumpster fire. Noah Fant is somebody that can win you a week, but has such inconsistent with his athletic ability can win you a week, but has been so inconsistent because of the inconsistent quarterback play. Drew Lock induced inefficiency for Noah Fant, that it's kind of held him down. Hurst has been up and down as well. Trey Burton just seems to score touchdowns every week, but doesn't get targeted enough to really have a solid floor for 3K. So I'm going to pay up to get what I think is 7 or an 8 target floor with a 100-yard bonus and way more touchdown usage because of his end zone targets increasing. The island of Foster Moreau has not been something that the Raiders have been living on. They're just feeding the ball to their talented players like Jacobs and Waller as much as they can. So we're just going to do that. We'll just plug in a random defense. Let's yeah, okay. Don't even pay attention to this, please. I'm just plugging in a defense. We'll worry about defense as the week goes on. That leaves us $5,000 average per player. Whether or not Tua starts, like we can look up in here, but like all these guys are kind of Julio Jones. We have to monitor the injury that he had. Like it's too cheap for Julio Jones if he's healthy. So I am interested at least a little bit, probably more in tournaments than in cash games, but I get that he's going to pop as a cash game play this week. But we do have to monitor that injury. DJ Moore and Anderson are fluctuating in terms of who gets the targets on a week in, week out basis. We've seen them have 3, 6, 7, 11. We just don't know where it goes. Especially, I'm assuming that Teddy Bridgewater is going to be back this week, which could make Anderson more of the play, where he's gone 8, 13, 6, 9. Like the targets just keep yo-yoing up and down, making neither of them a very, I don't know the word that I should use here, like somebody that I'd be very confident plugging into a cash game lineup. But the guy who is priced cheaper, who I do want to use in this lineup, and it goes up against Shepard, who has seen solid volume since Tate went into the doghouse. But Curtis Samuel's volume recently and usage have been very, very good. Especially once they get into the red zone and end zone. 5,100 as opposed to paying 6,000 plus for the other two guys on Carolina, I think is the better route to go. I want the lower variance guy averaging 13.8 points per game. We need 15 points for him to reach value. Way more involved at this point in the season, consistently getting targeted. This game against Tampa Bay, a very tough defense to deal with. You can kind of throw this out for their past month, because Minnesota is a team that you can attack through the air. Same with Detroit, same with Kansas City, same with Atlanta. This looks like a team that he can get after. I know that he's scored a lot of touchdowns, and variance might be ready to rear its ugly head. The regression monster in terms of touchdowns might be coming, but he's getting targeted in the end zone and he's getting carries inside the red zone. So the way that they're utilizing him does tend to make me want to believe that the touchdown upside is there on a week in, week out basis, and the volume's there to provide us the floor, leaving us with 4,900, which means we're going to need a value guy and we're going to need a stud guy. I can actually correlate these guys. Well, maybe not a stud guy, I'm a mid-price guy, but the Devontae Parker, 7, 7, and 9 targets each of the last 3 weeks, 6K. We need him to get to about 15 to 20 points for us to reach value. I like this play a lot better if Tua is out this week. They said they didn't take him out because he got hurt and it was just a precaution. If Fitz is at quarterback, obviously Parker gets a major upgrade in my opinion, but the price that he's at is fair. We know that he's getting end zone targets. He had one called back on a replay a couple of weeks ago when he played the Chargers. So they are still utilizing him even with Tua at quarterback. They are utilizing him once they get close, and the Jets just boost everybody's performance, both between the 20s and in the red zone. Increasing his touchdown expectation against this team at only 5,900. And that leaves us needing a value play. And Denzel Mims got 8 targets last week. They finally involved him for 2 weeks in a row, guys. 3 of the last 4. 7. We're going to forget the 3 that he had against Kansas City. 8 targets against New England. 8 targets against the Los Angeles Chargers. Yes, we need to work on that catch rate. But his ADOT, his average depth of target, means that he's not somebody that's going to have these easily convertible targets into catches, because he gets targeted way more downfield. Big bodied wide receiver, can take advantage of Miami once they get inside the red zone. Yes, Miami has talented cornerbacks and that defense has done very well. If you want to pay up for Miami's defense this week in tournaments, I get it, but I need a value play, and there's a couple more in this range. If you don't like Denzel Mims or his matchup, I get it. You don't think he's going to get the targets. You don't trust Gase. You think that the Miami cornerbacks are just going to shut him down. whatever. Okay? All the arguments against MIMS I get. You want to go with somebody else in that range? Fine. But in terms of this lineup, and on Monday when I'm building it, pretty solid plug-in at 3,500. We still got 500 left. You can pay up more at defense. I just clicked the random one. You can find something else to upgrade if you want. But that's our first look lineup for week 12. Thank you guys for tuning in once again. Look out for another video right there.
He's a legend.